Part of what the country has to do is look in the mirror and face the reality. We have a problem with domestic terror. It's real. I believe anybody who echoes a replacement is to blame, not for this particular crime, but it's for no purpose except profit and or political benefit. And it's wrong. It's just simply wrong.
President Biden and the left continue to tie white Americans and Republicans to Buffalo's shooter using the great replacement theory to brand them all as racist. Some are even going as far as to say that those who spread misinformation or whatever the left labels as misinformation should get jail time.
We got to watch out because the Republicans have become the purveyors of misinformation. And when our two-party system is broken like that, democracy is seriously in trouble. The president acknowledged that. It's time to actually start doing things and maybe taking some names and putting people in jail.
Seriously, wow. Let's welcome in now former Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Rebecca Kleefisch. Good to have you with us, Lieutenant Governor. You are now currently running for governor in Wisconsin. Great to see you.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
Well, it seems like there is a concerted effort on the left. Everyone wants to believe that Republicans are to blame for this attack in Buffalo and that all white Americans, quote, need to come to terms with their role in this. That was some of the commentary on MSNBC this week. But what about the people who should have known about the shooter's plans? The New York Times reporting that in the months leading up to the attack, the shooter posted about his attack plans on a private Discord chat room. 30 minutes prior to the attack, a small group of people were invited and joined that server. There is reels of evidence that he was telecasting his move here. How could the FBI and police not know that he was going to do this?
John and Bianca, make no mistake about this. White supremacy is evil, and Republicans universally condemn this. But what is wrong here is that Democrats are somehow trying to distract from stories like what happened in one of our towns, Milwaukee, the other day. 21 people shot on Friday night when the Milwaukee Bucks were celebrating, just trying to bring attention to our great state because of their great basketball feats. And then 2 days later, another 2 murders. And then right after that, another 2 murders. When you're talking about crime statistics like that, knowing that the leftists are trying to cater to the rioters and the far fringes of their own political party with this defund the police style mentality and catch and release criminal justice, they're trying to distract from them taking the blame for a crime wave that is overtaking this country. They don't want to talk about that, but that is the truth.
And they don't want to talk about unifying, although they claim to be the party of unifying. And, you know, Rebecca, I want to get your take on this. Obviously, we just played a couple clips, but the left and the media seem to have no problem also ignoring the damage done to African-American communities. I mean, you take BLM, for example, the fraud of the organization. We reported yesterday Patrisse Cullors and what she's done on top of hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy houses, special favors, jobs for her family and friends. And you probably also, you know, you mentioned what happened after the Bucks game, but this was another case that got very little play. The Jewish businessman, Craig Greenberg, he survived an attempted assassination attempt, a BLM activist who was once, you know, pictured with Barack Obama at a rally, had links to anti-Semitic groups, and he won the Democratic primary for the mayor of Louisville. So he's you know, alive here to tell the story, but zero from the media on who these people are and those crimes that are being perpetrated.
This is big Democrat machine. This is big media. This is big tech, all conspiring together to distract from the real problems of this country. You're right. They are not talking about unifying. They are, in fact, fanning the flames of political division, which is exactly what Tony Evers did right here in Wisconsin when he allowed Kenosha to burn and rioters to overtake that city. $50 million up in smoke. 2 men had to die before he even sent the necessary resources to protect that community. The Kyle Rittenhouse trial never should have been live streamed across the country because it never should have happened. The same thing happened in our state capital, Madison, Wisconsin. Rioters, once again, firebombing the city county building. tearing our statues from their pedestals, being dragged through the streets. Statue of a Union colonel fought to end slavery. And then another statue in tribute to women's equality. They beat a liberal state senator till he was unconscious, bleeding in the Capitol lawn. And it doesn't end. Just about a week and a half ago, we saw another firebombing, this time by pro-abortion activists, threatening that anyone who stands for the voiceless among us, anyone who is pro-life, is now threatened because you see these Democrat leaders refusing to stand up to the bullies and the left fringes of their own political parties. And big tech and big media is a part of the big cabal with them. And it's a sad shame, but it's going to take people like us to stand up and fight for the core, the heart of this country, and its very soul. This is a battle for freedom. This is a battle for the Constitution. This is a battle for the soul of America.
We also saw in our coverage of this yesterday, we mentioned it, that Deadspin article that drew a line between what happened in Buffalo to Kyle Rittenhouse. They said, never forget that Kyle Rittenhouse is a free man. Of course he's a free man. He was attacked and then killed his two attackers, both of whom were convicted felons, but that's for another story. I did want to ask you, though, about President Biden not going to Waukesha. Darrell Brooks, of course, drove that SUV through the Christmas parade there, killing 6 people, injuring 61 others. I'm not going to play it again, but I'm sure you saw the clip of the new press secretary dismissing a question about that. How big of a slap in the face is that to the people of Wisconsin and Waukesha in particular?
Wisconsin is devastated by this. The president picking winners and losers, saying that the people of Wisconsin are not worth his time, not worth his visit. 6 people died because a bad leftist allowed a bad man to go free because of his low and no bail policies for criminals, playing catch and release with bad people with rap sheets a mile long, allowed to get out and terrorize communities, not only across Wisconsin, but this violence is spreading across this nation. You know, this guy, the district attorney of Milwaukee County, his name is John Chisholm. He said he knew that his policies of setting low or no bail for monsters like Darrell Brooks would lead to the loss of life. In fact, in 2007, he was interviewed about it, and he said that he guarantees it, that people will die. 6 people did, 61 injured. Joe Biden cannot be bothered to show up. Tony Evers, our own governor, when he was asked whether he had time or spent any time talking with crime victims in Milwaukee, where we see murder rates skyrocketing. They're up 50% year over year last year, when we had another record year for murders. These leftists, they don't care about middle America.
And
they don't care that crime is still all over. I'll fire John Chisholm. I'll fire him on day one, and I will listen to the pleas of victims across our state.
I mean, the thing that's important to note here, too, and you mentioned a lot of the crime happening in your city. This is middle America. This isn't, places where you traditionally see it happening. So where our country is, and the criminals who feel empowered or emboldened to just do it no matter where they are. We want to talk a little bit also about the Wisconsin governor primary. You and Tim Michaels locked in a close race there. Our focus, of course, has been on that need to crack down on crime in Milwaukee. And you've called for more police on the streets. Your opponent does as well. You tweeted this one, put this up about the Deer District's horrible catch and release policies. Tell us about, your thoughts on how you would focus on bringing the crime down in these areas.
Well, I'm a former reporter, Bianca. These are neighborhoods that I covered crime in. I have spent a good long time not only talking to the people of Milwaukee and their frustration being terrorized by these violent criminals, but also the police who are protecting people on an everyday basis. After the shootings in the Deer District, I called the captain who was in charge of that particular area. He said that his officers that night literally heard and felt bullets whizzing by their heads as they tried to enforce the law. But the frustration there is they just don't have enough cops, because the city leaders and the county leaders do not enforce the laws that we already have on the books. We need to put at least 1,000 new cops on the streets. We need to do community-oriented policing. We need to get school resource officers back into our public schools after they were booted out by these movements to defund the police and mistrust everyone who is simply trying to protect the little ones and the families of our great state and across this country. We also need to do bail reform and sentencing reform to take away discretion from bad district attorneys like the guy I was telling you I was going to fire, and also these judges who just play catch and release. You saw that headline that you just put up in a screen grab. If you take a look at it, you will see that at least 2 of the people who were arrested during that shooting Friday night, they're already back on the street.
Yeah.
They were let go on signature bond. They basically just sign up and say, hey, you know, I'll come back for my previous court date. I'll come back. And they let go. And then
no
they go
deterrence.
back on. They put people up in the Deer District, which is supposed to be a family-friendly area to watch the Bucks games. And then they're back out on the streets now after being arrested during those shootings. Explain to me how this continues to happen in a logical society.
It shouldn't.
I think that county courthouse just is lacking logic. We need to fire. And if it takes my leadership to do that, then darn it, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it on day one. Somebody needs to stand up to the criminals, and somebody needs to stand out to the courthouse bullies.
Rebecca Kleefisch running for lieutenant governor, or for governor, I'm sorry, former lieutenant governor in Wisconsin. Great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.